Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to Beer Blather 240. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, Hashem the asshole's gone. And that one, and that one, and the other one. To the chagrin of Joe Biden, Kablabla Harris, Emmanuel Macron, and the rest of the terrorist-loving crowd, Israel continues its methodic cleansing of the Middle East of the scourge of Islamic National Socialism. Hamas is decimated. Hizbollocks is lagging not far behind. The Houthies are getting pounded, and Iran is in a state of panic. Barely 4 days after his appointment as the new head of Hizbollocks to replace the defunct Hassan Nasrallah and Nassan's replacement, on the very day the Sura Council and their Quds force handlers gathered in a bunker in Beirut to ratify the appointment, Hassan Safi al Din, or Hashin Saffieddin, if you like it better, became one with the cosmos with the rest of the rats present. His would-be replacement, Naim Kuzam, had a mythical rapture, resigned his position in Hezbollah, announced his membership in the organization was no longer in place, and proclaimed that he's retiring to some lonely place in Iran to dedicate himself to a life of worship and meditation. The short life expectancy for the terrorist leadership surely played a role in his decision. Relentlessly, the destruction of Hizbollocks stockpiles of missiles from Tyre to Tripoli and Beirut continues with maddening speed and accuracy. 700 million a year contributed by Iran going up in smoke. And that's a good thing. In the West is where we will find the only lumpen protesting the terrorist demise, giving free rein to their hatred towards the West and the Jews. While the Arab world celebrates, BBC broadcasts sermons by Ayatollah Khamenei, and mobs take to the streets in New York, Paris, London, and Rome. Alas, in Rome they were met with riot police, gas and water cannons. In France, with Macron threatening an arms embargo against Israel, remember Vichy, like he never proposed one against Iran, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthies. In 2 days, it will be a year since Hamas barbarians committed the worst atrocities imaginable against Jews, Christians, and Muslims in southern Israel. Soon, the virus will be dead. And those who support, finance, and enable these monsters ought to be next. I'm Israel High. In November, save America from the clutches of retarded lowlifes and put the fascists out. And, just in case you didn't know, I'm Saul Montez Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, here in Florida, hunkering down for the next hurricane. And here with me, right over there, is Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War I flamethrowers, hunkering down from another communist invasion in Mexico. Thomas, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm just looking up to see what the French supply to the IDF. Let's see.
Not much.
Let's see. Yeah, here this article says military equipment. $21 million worth in
oh boy,
every year. So let's see. From 2013, it's been $266 million to the IDF. In other words, the French equipment doesn't matter.
Now, remember, he didn't declare an embargo. He called for an embargo. They're
Oh,
not
yeah.
supplying shit, but they expect us not to do it. Allow me to do a very Italian gesture for a very French asshole.
Yeah,
We're not gonna stop supplying Israel, you son of a bitch.
well, we just sent the head of Central Command to help the Israelis coordinate their attack on Iran. So what the hell is Biden not in control of the U.S. armed forces or what?
Well, no, he's not, but that's a different thing.
No, I mean, look. Well, I just said look, and that's one of my least favorite expressions. I've never said that in my life before. Maybe it's because I'm talking about Biden. Usually when someone says look, they're in the wrong some way or another. So let me retract that look. There, I just retracted it.
Can I say it again?
Can you see it again?
Yeah, can I see you retracting the statement?
It's gone. Everything's gone. The most responsible armed forces when it comes to mass attacks is the Israeli armed forces, the Israeli defense forces. And, these should be the people who carry out an attack on exactly. This is the second explosion. This was an arms depot in Lebanon.
In Beirut, specifically. This is in the southern neighborhood of Beirut.
The Israelis built munitions that specifically utilize weapons. They cause them to explode, but generally speaking, if you looked at the Syrian war, the Syrian civil war, the Free Syrian Army and basically any anti-Assad regime, they would use anti-tank guided missiles, and they would fire them at these arms depots, and you would see full-size ballistic missiles like Scuds cartwheeling, flying through the air in all directions and landing, in civilian areas. You don't see that with the Israelis because they're using different munitions that are specifically designed to destroy munition stockpiles like that. That was that huge explosion you saw that created the smoke tornado in the middle of it.
Yes, it literally looks like a tornado, doesn't it? Look at that.
Yeah. So the Israelis can carry this sort of mission out without too many problems. Today, the Israeli head of Northern Command was photographed standing in Lebanon, looking back towards Israel. So far they've not. I think they've lost. They've lost fewer than 5 soldiers now in combat in Lebanon, and they're mopping the earth with Hezbollah.
Mopping is the word.
Yeah.
They've carried out in this week over 3,000 sorties. They've destroyed way over 2,000 ammo depots, killed 250 Hizbollocks, and decapitated the organization down to the 3rd level of command. I have to say it, Hezbollah is done.
Well, see, they're doing something. The Israelis are doing something I've never seen before. They wiped out the top level of command. Then they moved down to the second one, which are basically majors, wiped them out. Then they moved out and they wiped out the captains, and now they've wiped out the platoon commanders. So, okay, Hezbollah is entirely centralized. Our armed forces are such that if everybody in any given area of operation, if all the officers were killed and there was one corporal left, that corporal is allowed to assume general command of the entire area of operation, and he or she will know what to do. Hezbollah isn't like that. Hezbollah needs commanders right over your head telling you every single thing to do. And if they're down to wiping out the platoon commanders, then Hezbollah is useless. It doesn't know what to do.
No, they're running around like headless chickens. They don't even know where their ammo depots are.
Yeah.
Because commanders kept that as a guarded secret to ensure permanency. So this is done. They're done. What comes after that, it's done. Oh my God, Saul, you're wrong. They just attacked, I don't know, a primary school. Of course, there are a bunch of loose cannons yet that can do some damage. But again, like I said about Hamas 3 months ago, as a military force, they no longer exist. Now it's a band of very dangerous assholes, but no longer an army.
Yeah, a rabble. They're a rabble.
They're a rabble. And the same thing is going to happen to Iran very, very soon.
And whatever's done to Iran is going to happen extremely quickly, because the Israelis don't have the ability to loiter over the target the way we do. We could basically keep our strategic bombers in the air indefinitely at this point. If they take crews that sleep around the clock, and we have refueling aircraft, we could basically keep our strategic bombers over Iran indefinitely, and having people on the ground, lasing targets for us or whatever. Israelis don't have that ability. They have aerial tankers, but they don't have any strategic bombers. So they're going to be using multi-purpose fighters all the way, probably almost certainly the F-35.
The modified F-35s. They double the range, and they can carry some heavy shit too. So we'll see how it works. And apparently they managed to do these without affecting the stealth profile, which is quite an accomplishment. But something came to my mind. I know it's a different subject, but it's just a comment on the side. When you spoke of strategic bombers, did you see the Russians shoot down one of their own bombers today?
Yeah.
Because the asshole pilot on the Su-25, instead of locking onto a Ukrainian drone, he locked onto the strategic bomber that was flying ahead of it. Now, think about that for a second. The son of a bitch fired a missile with his own bomber in front of his nose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They're like the best, aren't they?
Well, even before this war, Russian combat pilots received maybe a quarter of the flying time that Americans are required to have before they can go on to active duty. So there was no chance in the world that the Russians were going to have an effective aerial combat arm. They're not trained. I saw a clip. It was a Norwegian sub-patrol aircraft. The Norwegians are still using some kind of turboprop, and the Russians decided to try and intercept it with one of their strategic bombers, the Tu-95 Bear. And here's the Bear sort of lumbering along. It's the fastest turboprop aircraft in the world, but it's a sitting duck. So the Norwegians just sent up whatever they use. It was a single-seat, multi-role fighter, and this thing went up and it pulled it alongside the Norwegian sub-detector, the sub-hunter, and the Russian Bear just kind of stayed there. So the pilot You could almost hear him go, oh, okay. And he did this amazing sort of bank, and he cut the bomber off right in front of its frigging nose, and the Russians went, and they turned almost completely sideways to get the hell away from this fighter. So that was the extent of the Russian pilot's flying ability. It's like this Norwegian pilot. Basically, he turned his aircraft so he was like right in front of it, like a wall, and the Russians had no choice but to get the hell out of the area because, again, this interception happened technically in Norwegian waters. So the Russians, I don't know why they're doing this. If they pick a fight with Norway, that means they're picking a fight with NATO, and if they pick a fight with NATO, that fight's going to be over really, really, really quickly. Because even if all of NATO doesn't agree to do something, all our new members and all the members that are closest to Russia, they're going to get together on their own accord and say, fuck it.
The Prime Minister of Finland today was saying, had Ukraine been accepted into NATO, there would have been no war.
Yeah.
Now, you know what some of the idiots in the U.S. are saying? That it was NATO's eastern expansion, which is a double fallacy. What caused the war? And the Prime Minister of Finland, who has 800 miles of border with Russia, says, no. Had we accepted Ukraine's request, there would have been no war.
Exactly. I mean, the Finns, we're talking, okay, Finland broke away from the empire. The Russian Empire collapsed, was taken over by the Reds. So Finland has been an independent state for over a century in its current form, and it's been neutral the whole time.
Why? And it was invaded by the Russian twice, and twice they beat them.
Exactly. And why did the Finns decide to join NATO? Because out of the blue, as the Russians were rolling into Ukraine, they said, oh, and by the way, Finland and Sweden, if you dare to join NATO, we'll nuke you. And so the Finns and the Swedes says, well, that's it. Our neutrality didn't work. The Russians are threatening us anyway, so we may as well have all of the Western European armed forces and the armed forces states on our side. We tried to be neutral. We tried to be nice. It didn't work out. And so, you.
And mind my words, because of Russians' bellicosity, there are others who will be knocking on NATO's door two-faced, including Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time.
Well, okay, Tucker Carlson said that Putin was right, that NATO was pushing eastward. That's not it at all. All those eastern countries were retreating into the arms of the West to get the hell away from the Russians because the Russians were waging war on them pretty much since all of Putin's years in office.
Or meddling in regional affairs and provoking regional wars, like between Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Yep.
Or invading and snatching territory, like Georgia. Or destroying a country like Chechnya. I mean, it's not, being a neighbor of Russia, it's like being Secretary General of Hizbollocks.
Well,
it doesn't bode well.
Everything that the Russians do is stuff that they've always done. The Latvians were essentially the Russians, when they were in control of Latvia, they basically bust in or railroaded in ethnic Russians. Those people are Latvians, and they still don't speak a word of Latvian. 100 years later, all they speak is Russian, and they look down on the native Latvians, and by all accounts, they're the worst behaved people in all of Latvia. So Latvia, after the invasion of Ukraine, they passed a law saying that you must be able to speak fluent Latvian in order to be a Latvian citizen.
Or get the fuck out of here and go to St. Petersburg.
If you want to speak Russian, go to Russia. And the Russians went, this is an outrage. It's like, but I've seen the videos.
Yes.
Of Russian customers at restaurants behaving like
banshees.
The worst sort of entitled pigs you've ever seen in your life. And it's like, this is why this is happening to you. Look how you're acting.
You know, I can't help but think of the black legend of the ugly American, which is one of the most unjust black legends out there. Not that any of them is just. Americans got a bad rap because imagine that. They went to Europe as tourists in the 50s and 60s speaking English. Mm-hmm. They didn't learn the nuances of la langue française. They did not read up on Émile Zola. And they had the gall, the unmitigated gall of going to a place that catered to tourists and say, "May I have some coffee?" And that made them ugly. Because they were supposed to speak French, No, you're supposed to cater to your customers. We fed Europe. This is at the time when we were feeding Europe and rebuilding it.
Well, the Europeans
and these Russians that you are describing are the very picture of the ugly American, except the ugly American didn't exist, and these assholes are for real.
Well, the Europeans have never forgiven us for saving them from Nazism and rebuilding their various countries. And this is another reason why I've finally come to realize, as Trump has, is that there should be no nation building. We going to war, it should be the very last thing, but we should make it clear, the way Trump did to the Taliban, we're not gonna bomb your soldiers. We're gonna bomb you. We're gonna bomb you personally. Here's where you live. And that way, I mean, fake anti-war people always said that political leaders, if there's going to be a war, then it should be the political leaders of those two countries fighting it out in a ring. It's like, yeah, I'm all for that. Let's let the
no. It's called the decapitation strike.
And we'll send ours.
Yeah. You know? I don't know. I would do it differently, but a decapitation strike, I'm all for it. There are some people that would tell you that to target for assassination the leader of the of your opponent it's perfectly legitimate.
Well,
if the regulars could have taken a pot shot at General Washington in Valley Forge, do you think they wouldn't have?
Well, what about, I mean, the casualty lists, as I pointed out last show, I think, from Gaza, the Israeli officers are dying at a much higher rate than the enlisted people, percentage-wise. And you don't have Hamas saying, "Oh, I can't assassinate that major. I can't assassinate." They're a legitimate target. They're a legitimate target. But this is
it always was.
This is something that we have been very stupid. One of the reasons we have so many intelligence failures is because by law we can't have relationships with countries that are accused of human rights violations. So we can't have a secret under the table relationship with North Korea that we use to prevent war. Because they're human rights violators. And of course, this is enforced completely arbitrarily. I mean, by any account, the French are like massive human rights violators. Ask the people of the Ivory Coast. I'm not talking about 100 years ago either.
No, you can ask about Mali now. By the way, how did the Rwanda thing start? In the 90s, that ended up with 2 million dead in the worst genocide, really genocide.
Well, I mean,
it started with French paratroopers, for crying out loud.
Well, yeah, I mean the French claim sort of a divine right to rule in Africa because I mean there's plenty of countries in Africa whose official language is French.
Ooh, mon Dieu.
Yeah, and why in the world would Africans have French as their official language? It's because they used to be owned by the French, and the French pay lip service to this notion that we freed those people a long time ago. Not very long ago, asked the Algerians. And the French are intervening when they see fit. They make all sorts of comments about Israel, but what they do in these African nations, Israel wouldn't dream of doing.
There was. I remember I took a look at it about 10 years ago, and a question that most of our audience would not be able to answer correctly, which is the country that has conducted more invasions of third countries since the end of World War II?
Tell us.
What do you think that was? Most people would say the U.S.
Well,
most people would say the U.S.
Yeah.
In fact, it was France that conducted, in the space of a few years, 36 invasions in Africa, including Mali, Chad, Rwanda, Libya. They go anywhere and back constantly. And why do they do that? Control of the gold mines, of the diamond mines, which is what the Russians are trying to wrestle from the French now. They even control, they print a special African euro.
African what? Euro?
Euro. A currency that is used by 5 countries in Africa: Mali, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire. And it's printed by the French that imposes these. And the French benefit not only for their monetary control of these countries, but seigneurage. And they literally have these countries in a state of economic vassalage. It's ridiculous. In the meantime, these countries resort to child slavery in order to produce the cobalt and all the shit that the Green Party assholes want in ever-increasing quantities.
Well, lithium mining in third world countries is the most destructive form of mining that anyone has ever come up with. I mean, you think coal strip mining was bad. Lithium mining,
Yeah, the cobalt is done almost exclusively in Africa with slave labor.
Sure.
Children.
Sure.
So that some asshole in Beverly Hills can drive around in an electric car, and not much more than that. By the way, how many people were able to escape the effects of Helene using electric cars?
Well, considering that okay, there was a vast shortage of charging stations, and I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. I mean, do you have that video of the FEMA explaining why it's taken so long to like house people, house the unhoused? Do you have that video?
Oh, I don't know if I do. Did I show it? Did I send it to you?
Yeah, you sent it to me. But okay, let's tell everybody.
Then I must have it. Hold on. Where is it? Hold on. Iran's embassy in Kiev. Oh, I have a video of Ukrainian women showing their titties in front of the Iranian embassy in Kiev. That is rather interesting.
Like, they're up there holding their robes up and grasping themselves with one hand while they're shouting, "Don't tempt me, you satin satanic Ukrainian beauty with beautiful breasts. Don't tempt me."
They're beautiful, if slightly small, I should say, but hey, to each his own. Bunker Hizbollah. This you're gonna like. Hold on, I found one that we're gonna use the other ones later, but I am gonna show you this one now because, of course, we're still in YouTube, so I don't want to abuse the video thingy. But this one I can show you. By the way, before I'm done, this first one is Naim Qassam, who is the Vice General Secretary of Hizbollocks, but decided to hit the road, Jack. There you go.
Oh, what a holy
man. He's saying, this is the way my ass is going to be if I stay here, so I'm out of here. And this one is not Israel, which is rather surprising. This one is the U.S. and British Air Force aircraft bombing Houthi positions after the Houthis sank yet another tanker, this time a British tanker. And this is what happened. It appears we are learning from the Israelis, don't you think?
Well, we'll do it for a little while, then we'll stop. I mean,
that is true.
The election can't come fast enough. We got a month left. Trump went to Butler again, and he began his speech by saying, "As I was saying," it's Musk was there. Musk was leaping about 5 or 6 feet into the air, which is interesting.
He can leap higher than a tampon team.
Yeah. And, it's MSNBC were interviewing a bunch of union members. They were longshoremen who were all going to vote for Trump. And she was saying, well, what about January 6th? And they were like, who cares? There's a bunch of people who they went to protest and things got out of hand. Who cares? Well, what about the fraud case? I didn't follow it and I don't care. Well, what do you care about? Well, I care about the economy. I care about illegal alien criminals. I care about my quality of life. I care about the fact that I can't afford a house. And MSNBC is like, but what about the fact that there's an old lady who said he raped her, but he didn't rape her, and she doesn't know the year, and I mean, everything they were asking these longshoremen, they were all saying, I don't care. I'm going to vote for him because and there was a really young guy, and he said his record 4 years ago shows what he can do now, so why wouldn't I vote for him? And, first-time voter, young enough to be a first-time voter. So literally everything MSNBC brought up to these longshoremen fell flat. They didn't care. So it was an indication that the press has been wasting its time. It's been singing to the choir, and the choir is smaller than it's been in a long time. So,
yeah, I'm sorry about that, Thomas, but we had a completely irrational cretin into the chat here, and I had to take measures to swipe the streets clean.
okay.
Much like the Italian police with the pro-Palestine demonstrators today. God, some things I just have zero tolerance for. Have you noticed? I'm not gonna even mention the contrast with the brain dead cretin in the White House. Have you noticed Trump's comments regarding hitting the nuclear facilities in Iran?
Yes.
It's like we have on the one side Blinken and the rest of the merry band of imbeciles in the State Department and in our National Security Council, and that idiot who says he's running for president, telling Israel not to hit the nuclear facilities. What would be the point of that? And Trump saying, are you nuts? That's the first thing you have to hit.
Yeah.
Which I kind of totally agree. They have to hit anything related to the nuclear program and the island where they load almost 100% of their oil exports and cripple them economically and send them back to the Stone Age if possible.
Well, okay, the Iranians have said if the Israelis hit that target and cut off Iranian oil, then the Iranians will fire missiles at the Saudi oil fields. The Saudis haven't had to fire any missiles at Houthies for, 3.5 years now. So the Saudis are ready. And if the Iranians start firing missiles at Saudi Arabia,
they're going to get a reply.
The entire Gulf Cooperation Council Air Force is going to be in the air shooting the missiles down. The U.S. military will be shooting the missiles down.
Israel will be shooting the missiles down.
Israel will be shooting the missiles down. So this isn't much of a threat. The great attack on Israel was a complete flop. The press lied and said that the Israeli air defenses were overwhelmed. They were no such thing. I mean,
no, not even close.
No, and this was fewer munitions. They were all ballistic missiles, which are, it sounds counterintuitive, but they're easier to shoot down than drones because the ballistic missile goes and the drone goes. So the missile can be hit going on the way up. It can be hit when it's going straight, and it can be hit when it's coming down. And I don't know. Our press just needs to just go away because they're so absolutely corrupt now that they don't report anything of use. I mean, The only reason I know that the press was lying about the Iranian missile attack is because other idiots were believing it. I was listening to, uninvolved parties, and they said it was about 180 ballistic missiles. It wasn't 500.
No. There is something which can create some of the controversy out there. Only about 180 reached Israel. Most were intercepted. A few were allowed to hit the middle of nowhere and scare a camel. A handful actually hit a school in Tel Aviv that was empty. 3 hit in the vicinity of a military base, but caused no serious damage. But the Iranians did fire about 400. What the press is not telling you, and the idiots are not telling you, is about more than half of the missiles fired by Iran either dropped out of nowhere in Jordan, in Syria, or literally turned around and blew up the launching pad. There are several cases like that. They had about 10 people dead in Iran, 15 in Syria. In Israel, a dead missile dropped like an anvil on top of a Palestinian, and that was it.
Yeah.
So they did fire 400. It's even worse than the story that some people discuss. Oh, they fired 400. The Israelis don't want to say. The Israelis are cracking up because they did fire 400, and 220 either dropped out of the sky long before they reached their target, mostly over Jordan and Syria. And quite a number of them fell in Iran.
Well, I saw the map of the Air Force base, the Israeli Air Force base, where the missiles hit, and the missiles hit in empty space within the Air Force base.
Yes.
One hit the very end of the runway. As you know, all runways are meant to be much longer than necessary.
Yes. For obvious reasons.
Exactly. You don't want to build a runway that's exactly the distance that an aircraft needs to take off. And the photo I saw, the satellite photo, showed that the missile had hit at the very end of the runway, something that could be repaired within a matter of hours. But also, there were no assets at that Air Force base.
No assets, no casualties, no serious damage.
Yeah.
So much for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, Iran, we've spent decades building up Russia, China. It used to be Pakistan. Pakistan's kind of, nobody cares anymore.
No, but between you and me and the doorpost, you have to be a singular kind of stupid to build up Pakistan.
Oh, well, the Pakistani Inner Services Intelligence, they're the most dangerous in the world. Yeah, Trump had them all killed with
to
one
themselves. Yeah. Well, Trump and she looked on TV.
Yeah. So, the thing is that, I mean, there's people, there's people who hate America so much that they're going to build up all our enemies. And it's an infantile hate because these people all benefit from being Americans living here. And if for example, they were taken prisoner by the Russians, the first thing they would do is, like that stupid basketball player, they'd scream for help from America. And, on the other hand,
can you believe that this imbecile Biden freed one of the nastiest weapons traffickers to Russia in exchange for that idiot?
Yeah, I can believe it. I mean, Biden Biden is so petty that he's now tanking Kamala's campaign. He's going everywhere saying she was an integral part to the implementation of all her failed policies. She was the deciding vote in many cases, because as stupid as Kamala is, she's campaigning as a breath of fresh air.
As something different.
Yeah, something different. We need something different. What do you mean? A president who's a literal, like, mental defective? That's what you mean? Like somebody with a below average IQ? That's what you mean? That is different. But it's not something we need. I don't know. It's such a...
Yeah, and right after that, somebody asked Biden if he regrets having left the race for the presidency, and he turns around and says, "I'm back." He's back where? In the asylum?
He doesn't know. I mean, he's not on any... I mean, I guess maybe he's running a write-in campaign. I don't know. But who would vote for him?
And Kablabla was just today talking about how she is the underdog in this race.
Yeah, I heard that.
Oh, it's so much joy, my friend. So much joy. I can't count it anymore. Let me see if I find that. In the meantime, I have something else for you. I think you mentioned it a little while ago. Listen to this imbecile.
Being a migrant trans woman, there is an undocumented concern. There is also a concern of whether they would trust the places that are offering shelter that are faith-based because of the way they've been responded to in the past. Then if they are accepted, what would happen in terms of misgendering, in terms of bedrooms and bathrooms, etc. And then in addition, public safety once they're inside from those who are actually sheltering with them. All those concerns are there. Being a migrant...
Okay, did you hear that?
Well, I know what she said. I didn't hear it, but I know what she said. She said that the reason they've been so slow in setting up shelters for survivors of the hurricane is because they need to make sure that these places will be transgender safe and that these people won't be misgendered. So she's worried about pronouns. This is real.
Literally.
This is real. This is real. We've got people who have nowhere to go, and that entity there, that genderless entity, is saying that we have to ensure that wherever these people are sheltered, they use the right pronouns.
I don't care if we're new boob. That dude is saying that we have to go slow and make sure that the shelters can accommodate pronouns. These people are not stupider because they didn't drop on their heads when they were born. Maybe they did, actually. It's insane.
Well, but see, this is why there's no such thing as a competent person who's also actually completely medically insane. That person doesn't exist. So I was looking at that genderless thing's official position. It was like it had something to do. The word pride was in there. So FEMA has like a pride representative. What does that mean? I mean, it's FEMA's Pride Federal Employee Research Group.
Director of Education Training, FEMA's Pride Federal Employee Resource Group. You gotta be kidding me!
Yeah, no, I mean this is all real. This is who the people elected because they didn't like Donald Trump's mean tweets. This is the person who every leftist loudmouth would want to be there, making sure that all the shelters use the right pronouns before they're even opened up. Well, we can't open them up. What if they use the wrong pronouns?
What if they don't have a bathroom for a specific type of transgender?
No,
This is insane. This is insanity on the loose.
Well, this is what people know. No. We're not going to have a transgender safe bathroom at an emergency shelter in Georgia. If you've got a problem, go crap outside or whatever, or just hold it in.
Actually, at this point, if there is a bathroom, so much the better. Because right now you have people hanging from trees.
Well,
we also elected this as vice president when we put those idiots in FEMA. And I'll bet you 10-1 the cocaine in the West Wing was Harris.
Are you going to do something?
Yeah, I'm trying to, but I cannot make it large enough here. Hold on. Oh boy. Yeah. Let me see if I can frame it properly. Yeah. Let's give it a try.
Oh, God.
If this thing isn't on coke, how do you explain this?
Well, I see a California flag behind her, so she's pretty typical for a Californian government official.
Holy crap, you guys are way beyond fucked over there.
Well, tell me about it. No, I mean the place that California has become. It's really quite an astonishing downfall. And okay, you and I were talking about the Netflix series about the Menendez brothers, and it was a drama, so it can't be taken as a biopic, but the period and the class and the location that it showed was exactly accurate, and just that sort of basically the in the series the Menendez brothers were presented as both victims and complete narcissistic nihilists. So you could say that the directors, because I looked at it, looked to me like different directors tackled different episodes. So I don't know, but it looked to me like they were trying to cover all bases. They were saying that basically everybody in this family was complicit in what happened, and you can argue whatever you want. One can argue what one wants. Were they molested? Were they not molested? It doesn't matter. They murdered their parents. They were found guilty, and they were sentenced to life without parole, and that's all that matters. But the philosophies of both the sons and the parents being presented, those are real philosophies, and they're symptomatic of the state. Like, okay, the Menendez brothers, I didn't even remember when they committed their crimes. Was it in the late 80s or the early 90s? I don't even remember.
No, 90s.
The 90s. Okay.
Early 90s.
California was well on its way down.
It was the same DA who couldn't get a conviction on these idiots is the one who couldn't get a conviction on OJ.
Yeah. So
probably the most incompetent son of a bitch ever to have a law degree.
Right. So what I'm saying is all the philosophies and the mindsets presented in that series, regardless of the series' factuality or lack thereof, the mindset is real, and it's what's helped bring California down, because California is now a state where the same mindsets being presented, like Californians pride themselves on being almost impossibly unpleasant to be around. That's something that that's something that you pride yourself on, and it's reflected in our senators. Barbara Boxer was the most unpleasant U.S. senator on record.
I'll be senator. I've earned it.
Exactly. No, and again, you had this gelding of an officer just knuckle under. I would have said, no, I'm going to call you ma'am, because that's what I call all women.
Everybody with a uterus.
Yeah, and the whole thing is just so, like, I have lost any attachment I have to this state. And this is a state I've been coming to since 1967, and there was so much that I wanted to take with me to what will be my final home. And now I don't care. I have no feelings left whatsoever. On my Netflix, I get it. I have something called Fire TV. And Fire TV, it's somehow connected to Amazon Prime. And Amazon Prime has a cloud storage for photos. But what happens, and you can't stop this, is that it uploads all the photos on your entire computer. And you tell it not to do that, and it says, oh, sorry. And then it does it again. So obviously they're looking for illegal material or whatever. They're doing something nefarious. But I put the movie on pause so I could go do something else really quick. And my photos start coming up. Here was a photo taken in 2012 of my brother standing in front of the house that the woman bought. And it was beautiful. It had these ancient succulents that were 100 years old in front. And then it had this beautiful tree that had these pinkish purple flowers that were almost like buttercups and bottle brush trees and everything. When she moved in, she had everything cut down, everything removed, because she just wanted a lawn, because, that's what Americans have. They have lawns. And she never put in a lawn, so her house is sitting on dirt with weeds, and every now and then someone comes and chops down all the weeds, so she's just left with dirt again. And that's very symptomatic of this state. Like, now, that house has no sentimental value to me whatsoever, because the woman who bought it cut down all the trees that the woman who died at 98, she'd planted those, and the person who'd lived in the house before her had planted trees and bushes and succulents. It was all gone. She just said, take it all out. Rose bushes that were over 100 years old. Take them out. So to me, that's what this state is. The state has been denuded. And how can...
I'm reading in the chat here. I think your state is more Bette Midler.
Is what?
Bette Midler.
My state is what about Bette Midler?
Your state is like Bette Midler.
Well, my state is
the strident little vaudeville shit who apparently hasn't taken a shower in a year. You probably can, if you stick your head out of your window, you can probably smell that ass.
Well, the house next door is a patch of bare dirt. That's what California is to me now. It's a patch of bare dirt. I don't care what happens to this house. If somebody with taste buys it, they'll live in here. But if somebody who just wants property in LA, they'll bulldoze this place and they'll build some ugly frigging stucco nightmare, and that's fine. I no longer care.
They're the ones that are going to have to live with it.
Yeah, and that's what the state.
The reason I mentioned Bette Midler is because that mentality of the woman that you're describing is the same one as that of Bette Midler, and showering only wastes water. We need to. You guys live right next to the fucking Pacific. It's like there is no water. And you mentioned once that there was a fashion starting up of people who were not showering.
Yeah.
I never thought they would take it into the year mark.
Well, they before they had a slogan: if it's yellow, it's mellow; if it's brown, flush it down. So if you peed into your toilet, you weren't supposed to flush it.
I remember the official campaign in New York in the early 80s to save water during the drought. If it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. I said, fuck that.
No, I mean, I have the electric power company calling me, with an emergency alert. It's like, no, I'm going to use my air conditioners. I can't live. We're in a heat wave. I'm working on my yard in a heat wave, and if I walk in from outside and it's hotter inside than outside, I'm just going to die. So I'm not going to die for the state. I'm sorry. Gavin Newsom isn't turning down his air conditioner, so I'm not going to do it either.
No, he probably has two.
Yeah. I mean,
you have to stay at home. You cannot see your parents in the hospital. People have to die alone while Gavin Darling is having a party at a restaurant.
Well, it reminded me. I learned something about Tim Walz. He sent his cops out with paintball guns, and if people were seen outside their house, not off their property, but outside their house, the cops were ordered to fire at them with paintballs until they went back inside. I mean,
I can't. Let me see. It's 1 hour. Let's go off of YouTube, because anytime I'm going to say something that is going to cost us there. People in YouTube, it's been a pleasure having you with us. Remember, we don't answer questions in YouTube. If you have any, come over to Odyssey and do it here. Or, God forbid, maybe even ask your questions in Twitter, though we won't answer them either. We might get to them at a later time. And with that, thank you, YouTube. It's been a pleasure. Goodbye.